Hello, Mr. Goritz. Thank you very much for having a little fireside chat with us. And I think we're going to start directly. We already heard the buzzword, digitalization. What are the main things that Thalia as a company changed to become a digitalized company?
Maybe first of all, I am a startup guy myself. And when I said about a year ago that I'm actually becoming a shareholder of Thalia, a lot of my startup friends looked at me and called me completely crazy because I said, bookshops are dead. They're not. And let me just ask you, who of you is Amazon Prime customer? Who of you likes to go into an inner city and appreciates nice shops? There's a certain mismatch, but think about it. No. Digitalization in the book space obviously really just happened to most of the book retailers, and that is when you look at the book space globally, the biggest challenge, because booksellers looked at online as just another channel. And just like opening another shop, a stationary shop in the high street, they said, oh, and this channel has to be run profitable. And if you look at the German book industry, about 30, 40 years ago, you didn't really have any big chains. So all the big chains, like the Douglas of the world, the Christ of the world, the Thalias of the world, only happened in Germany about 35 years ago. And one of the families driving that was the HEUREKA family, which was the Douglas holding. And while everybody was busy consolidating the retail space and trying to put their big trans-German, trans-European chains together, online happened. And most of the CEOs at that time didn't understand what online actually means, and they didn't see how much it could disrupt the entire market. So the answer of a lot of the big retailers was, there's a little bit of online, we build a bigger shop. People will come to the bigger shop. And suddenly you had a competition within cities where one retailer would build a big shop and the other competitor would build a big shop opposite of it and hope that the online problem would disappear. The consequence was both shops run unprofitable and the people still shopped online. So when you look at the predicament that a lot of the big book chains had 10 years ago, 5 years ago, Weltbild going bankrupt, a couple of international big players going into insolvency or on the brink of insolvency. Thalia had troubled times about 5, 6 years ago. That was homemade problems because nobody really looked at the online stuff and or looked too little and too late. And they didn't see that the shift towards online of consumers would lead to less frequency in the shops. And less frequency in the shops means you need new retail concepts. You need to decrease size instead of increasing size. And I think now the German book retail landscape is quite healthy because they consolidated the shops, they made smaller shops. Thalia is very healthy. And big players like Thalia obviously build up the online presence. And now if you buy books online, you probably buy them at Thalia or at Amazon because those are the two sort of really international, and particularly international Germany, Austria, Switzerland. But in Germany, those are the two brands that are very prominent in the online space. And when you talk about digitalization, the next step, obviously, is the entire ebook space. And there again, you also have success stories because all the booksellers joined forces after the first initial trials with ebook. And when Amazon brought out the Kindle in the US, Thalia had actually an ebook reader out in Germany before Amazon had the Kindle in Germany. Most people don't know that. So Amazon was rushed to launch a Kindle with an English menu because they didn't have the German product ready because they tried to sort of follow what Thalia did. And then, again, it's about courage. I mean, if you start a new product segment, which is digital, and you end-to-end suddenly have a digital product, you have to highly invest. And I think then it took a while to build this alliance, the Tolino Alliance, which we see now. And by the way, if you want to look at startup literature, the Tolinos are lying around at the roof terrace. I think each of them has about 600 startup books on it. So feel free to take a look.
Speaking of Tolino, yesterday I went to a Thalia store and tried to sell an ebook. Guess what? It didn't work.
It didn't work.
It didn't work. There wasn't even a Tolino for sale. No possibility to buy an ebook or anything else. So speaking of the connection of stationary trade and digital selling channels, In reality, the connection seems far away.
I would love if you tell me offline which shop that is, but no, I think generally that is working quite well. And if you look at who is adopting the e-reader, early adopters who are digital natives like most of us here, who shop online, who are not afraid of an e-reader. You guys probably all have one if you like to e-read with a device like the Tolino. But if you look at our parents' generation, who don't necessarily know how to put in the credit card, etc., those are the people who typically go to the shop, and that's actually the big USP of Thalia, that you have salespeople who go through it, explain it, set it up for you, and help you. So I'm surprised that you had this negative experience, but I'm very happy to help you out on that.
Okay. The German book market is quite unique. We have a big alliance of booksellers and companies who stand behind the Tolino. They have withstood strong against attacks of Amazon Kindle, but not long time ago, your technology partner has changed. Now it's a Canadian e-reader company, Kobo, which is replacing Germany's Telecom. Will there be any changes for the German customers?
For the customers, I think only positive changes. I think when we set up the Tolino Alliance, the Telecom was an extremely important strategic partner. And when you look at all the cloud services, when the Tolino Alliance was started, that still was at its infancy. So for Telecom back then, it was a very important showcase to show that Telecom is mastering these cloud services, and they did. And if you look at the success story that Tolino had, the big A internationally, on average, has 80 to 90% market share with e-readers. Germany, Austria, Switzerland are the three markets where it's more or less pari. So the one has 42 and the other one 43%, plus minus 2 or 3% is fluctuating, depending on who's doing a big sales push. And to come back to your question, when Telecom now said, okay, we are now focusing on other cloud activities, let's find a strategic partner together with the alliance, then obviously the big A wasn't really the partner we would have liked to have. And Kobo obviously has very similar interests. They're very strong in Canada, they're strong in the Scandinavian countries, they're strong in Asia. And in terms of developing the Tolino platform and developing the consumer product, that's actually the best partner we could have hoped for, because the Kobo will help us bring the roadmap forward, while for Telecom, at the end, it was a product where they knew, okay, the market scope was limited, while for Kobo, getting us as a partner on board, the second largest e-reader market, was a very important step.
Okay. I'll be honest with you, I'm a little bit sad. I'm a customer of you. I'm reading ebooks via Tolino since 2014. And when I started using the Tolino, I was a little bit annoyed about the navigation system, about some system crashes, about a not properly reacting touchscreen. Today, I am a little bit frustrated because little has changed since back then, since 2014. And that's because your product doesn't get better fast enough from my point of view. I think you're losing ground against your competitors, like Amazon's Kindle, for example.
Do you have one of the new Tolinos?
Yeah.
Okay, that's sorry to hear, but again, and I don't want to make up excuses, but when you have a transfer of IT platform, you can continue developing. And what we have seen in the last 12 to 18 months is actually very little progress on the IT side. And I mean, I know parts of the roadmap, so I can promise you one thing, it will get a lot better in the next 6 months.
Okay. The first books were written 5,000 years ago. We started with stone and papyrus, and then we changed to bits and bytes. But a digital book has quite the same functions as the printed one. There have been new initiatives like Sasha Lobo's SoBooks, who wanted to make the book, the digital book, shareable and open for users' comments. They called it social reading. Well, they failed. What are Thalia's ideas for the future book?
I think it's an interesting question, because when e-readers came up, everybody was like, wow, it's going to be 30% e-readers or 40% e-readers in a very short time. And you say you read a lot on the e-reader. I myself, I obviously have e-readers, and I use them because I feel I have to use them. but I prefer a physical book over the e-reader. Very simple reason. I'm spending all day on the monitor. I got my cell phone, I got my laptop, I got my iPad, I got my whatever, and I actually like having a physical book and giving my eyes a break and reading in another medium. And what we see right now is that the e-reader consumption is plateauing. In the US, the level is a bit higher, but it's also plateauing. In Germany, it's at about 7%. It's plateauing. Everybody who has an e-reader and likes it, is a frequent reader, continues to read with it. And so about innovation, I think there are innovative solutions, like Papego, for example. I don't know if you've used it, where you have an app, and you buy the physical book, and you can scan the page you're reading, and then you can continue reading the ebook on your whatever device you have, which I think is pretty cool. The question is how many people are actually using this. Same with the linking of audiobooks and physical books or ebooks, which I personally think is pretty cool. For a commuter who's reading a novel in the evening and then jumping into the car and driving half an hour to work, if you can continue listening your audiobook, that's pretty cool. Is all of that sort of the next level of reading? Honestly, I don't know.
But what about Tolino using audio? For example, I read a story and the Tolino is playing some music or atmosphere depending on the story's content I'm currently reading. Or, not, even better, what about a Tolino that smells like fish? If I'm reading a story about a fish market at the Baltic Sea coast in Rostock or Hamburg, what about that? I really like that. Can we do that?
I don't know, who of you wants the sardine smell in the bed when you're reading a novel about the fish market? I don't know. I think the first step towards tablets, and we obviously had the tablets at Thalia. A lot of the other big booksellers had tablets. We're going into that direction where you said, okay, you have cross-media, but then again, people have an iPad, and when you want to do media consumption, a speaker of an iPad is going to be better than a speaker of the hardware we have. It's a very specialized hardware that's focused on reading during daylight, reading on the beach, having a waterproof device that can be thrown around, that's not breaking. Well, you don't want to take your iPhone to those areas because it will break. So is it going to be hardware innovation? I don't think so. I think it's more going to be having the link between a book and an audiobook. And then there are some interesting things we see right now where Osram, the light bulb company, for example, is linking their light bulbs to SDKs in an app and an audiobook, where suddenly when you read a novel about and there's a scenery where the lightning hits, suddenly your light bulb starts flashing, and you get this type of atmosphere. So there are first initiatives to have that, and I just heard here on the trade show that particularly, and I assume that the entire red label industry is a bit more progressive on stuff like that. But I think you will have linkages of hardware and ebooks and audiobooks, etc. I think there's still a way to go. I think we will not see it with a broad reach. I think probably at the book fair this year we will see a couple of interesting solutions for that.
Okay, speaking of solutions, today we are on a founders conference. 6 years ago you took over TextTunes. What is your current relation to the founder scene? Are you actively looking for startups, for innovative companies that might fit your portfolio?
Yeah. TextTunes was a very important pillar for the entire digitalization of Thalia, a big agency that was running successful e-commerce platforms. And the TextTunes team still sits in Kreuzberg, integrated into Thalia. We have 2 big online teams in Münster and then here in Berlin in Kreuzberg. And the founders team is obviously still on board, driving not only for Thalia, the e-commerce platform, but also for Douglas, for Christ. So within the Douglas group, actually everybody is supported by TextTunes. And I myself, and sort of with a broader perspective, we only got involved with Thalia. We took over Thalia a year ago. And that was HEUREKA, the publisher from Freiburg, small Bible publishing company. And we did a similar move to Thalia. We took over the Smart Mobile Factory, which is a very successful Berlin-based app agency, doing a lot of publishing work, but also a lot of e-commerce work, a lot of industry 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. So, and I think an app agency can enable you to drive innovation because you see what's happening in the space, and you suddenly bring people to the table who, if you are successful as an agency on the innovation forefront, you definitely can bring innovation into the company. And for us as Thalia, that is a very important step because with the HEUREKA background, we in the past invested successfully in startups, and on the title of the speech we said, how do you bring startups and corporates together? And it's always a challenge because typically the startup is not ready for the corporate, and you really have to invest time and money to get the startup ready for the corporate. But then once it's ready for the corporate with its solution, it will probably kickstart the startup to be, have a reference in the corporate space, and then also be attractive for other corporates. And we did that very successfully with HEUREKA in the past, and we have the same idea for Thalia. We are screening a lot of startups. Hamburg Startups is helping us with that, and we do look on average probably at about 3 to 5 startups per month. Look at them, see whether there's a solution that makes sense for Thalia.
Excuse me, when you're already scouting the area and the founder scene, which startups are those? Which technologies are the interesting ones for you?
One success case from the HEUREKA space is Pondus. It's most of you guys probably have never heard about it. They are basically the SAP for publishers, and when we looked at them, they were still at the stage, they were working for small publishers, but not for big ones. Then we continued to develop the solution for 2 years with HEUREKA, and then HEUREKA implemented this solution, and now they are German market leader. They have the 20 biggest publishers are running on Pondus, which is sort of the end-to-end system for publishers that manage basically the author bringing the script in all the way to publishing it as an ebook. And sort of along this vertical value chain between the publisher and the retailer, and bringing intelligence to the publisher, bringing new reading experiences to the reader. That's obviously one area that's very interesting for us. Papego, we announced the cooperation at the Leipzig Book Fair earlier this year, where we try to exactly promote the scanning and linkage of ebooks and physical books, where we think that we don't really know whether the reader wants it, but we said, okay, it's an interesting technology, let's start with the cooperation and see how people react to it and adopt it. But then we also look at other areas like data-driven solutions for publishers, for example, because obviously we sit on a lot of data, and the data is not really used by publishers yet. We're looking in the education space. We have seen Mr. Maschmeyer before. He founded a company about 4 years ago, papagei.com, a very innovative e-learning and video learning platform for languages. Cool product, Angry Birds to learn English, NBC, New York Times videos to learn English or other languages. And we got involved with them about 8 weeks ago. And it's a great startup. And again, it's sort of the learning and education area we are interested in.
Okay.
So we try to identify areas that are close to our core business.
So there's still space for new startups, and that might be interesting for you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the insights. We're very interesting, and I think we're going to open up to the audience now. Do you have some questions for Mr. Goretz? Yeah. Yeah. Just a second.
Good old friend. My question is a little bit far-fetched from the topic, to be honest, because I know you're doing a lot of Ausbildung in Thalia, in your company. How you see the German system of the dual Ausbildung, apprenticeship, Germany, within the possibilities of Digitalisierung? Ich kann das Wort nicht aussprechen.
Good one. I think if you look at the duale Ausbildung at Thalia, obviously a lot of the jobs we have are jobs in the stores. But again, when you look at omni-channel, which I think is going to be absolutely crucial for every retailer, and omni-channel for us is not only linking online and stationary business, but also explaining it to Lino to readers, or sorry, or also bringing new innovative products like Papego to the reader, we do need young people who understand digital media. And at the same time, these people are probably not the most prone people to become a bookseller. And that is one of the biggest challenges you have, I think, as any retailer with duale Ausbildung. You need young digital natives. And if you look at the young apprentices we have, everybody has their cell phone, everybody has Snapchat, everybody has Instagram, but sort of bridging the gap between private digital natives and then proficiency, and again, training them in it, changing the duale Ausbildungssystem that it's more innovative, is tough. On the other hand, good news is, if you look at digital schools, digitalization for high schools is still a very, very long way, unless you send your kids to a private school. While if you go to the duale Ausbildung, the Berufsschule, the, I don't know how you call it, work colleges, they're actually quite digital, because they expect most of their students to have an iPhone or iPad or Android phone or a tablet, and a lot of the instruction material is already available on tablets, on phone and apps, etc. So are we there yet? No, definitely not. But do I have hopes that in the next 3 to 5 years we're getting there? Yeah.
Thank you for your opinion. I think the Ausbildung, the duale Ausbildung, could be a great asset for Germany if we treat it correctly. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Goretz, for the talk.
Thank you.